Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White, founder and CEO of the Bobby White Foundation.
Hi, good morning. I'm Bonnie Snyder, your co-host.
And we have a guest,
have
but
a
we're
guest.
gonna keep her a little secret for just a few minutes. We're back in the studio again, and this is our 99th episode. Yay! So with that, of course, we have to thank our producer, sponsor studio, John with Area 52 Media Group, and our new sponsor, Delynn Gaston with the mortgage firm. We're so happy to have her on board. Seriously, if you're looking to buy a house for the first time or refinance or do whatever, she's your gal.
And the thing with her too, I mean, just to piggyback on that, we love her. What I found with her, you don't have to be buying a house or wanting to rent. If you just have a question, like you're thinking about it, she's that go-to person.
Oh yeah, she's got it all down. Even if you have your financial situation might not be totally right, and you're looking to buy a house, but maybe some things need to be cleaned up, and maybe it might take 6 months or a year. She can put you right on that guide and really help you out. She's awesome. We love her.
We're biased.
Yeah, just a bit. But we're super happy to have her on board as a sponsor. So yesterday we did the Freedom Boat Club boat ride, and you missed it.
I was
okay.
well. I
know
at
you
my
had
other
it.
work.
You had it.
I was at my other
I know
work.
you had a real job, but it actually, there was 5 of us women that went out of catches. That's all of us. And actually today, one of the gals is the 15th anniversary of losing her son to suicide. And of course, a few weeks ago was the anniversary of losing Bobby. But it was really nice. The weather was perfect. It was beautiful. Just took a real mellow ride on the pontoon boats going out towards the stilt houses, and I think that's where we saw the dolphin. That's going up coming back in and going up the Cody River to Sims Park. And when we were coming back from Sims Park to Catches, we saw manta rays in the river.
Really? Oh wow!
It was really cool. So it was just a nice, mellow, relaxing day. We didn't talk about who we lost. We were just there to just chill and relax, and everybody had a wonderful time.
That's one thing. And again, I'm extremely bummed that I missed this. Like, okay, surgery and going back. Yeah, it's like I had to go
Life.
back to, when life happens. But what I love about just being out on the water. I do a lot of kayaking, so I could just imagine what it was like for you guys to be on the pontoon just...
Yeah, it's just, chilling. You have to take care of yourself. And one of the gals, actually 2 of them, they took the day off from work and just said, this is my time. You got to take time for self-care, whatever that's going to look like for you. But it was really nice and peaceful. And then actually we ended up going to lunch at Whiskey Joe's afterwards.
Spot.
And
now, when you went to Whiskey Joe's, were you up in the restaurant, or did you down by one of the fire pits?
No, we were up in the restaurant part, but the outdoor part of the restaurant. So we could still sit there and look out over the water. And
again, that highlights, living here, where we live in this particular area, there's, just so much that you can, take in. And, I look at it, like you said, taking care of yourself and just finding those things to do that, just kind of I look at it as my place of zen. And so like Whiskey Joe's is another one of those. Usually I like going out in the evenings for dinner. And I usually, hopefully, one of the areas down on the water by the fire pit. And, just, you got this fire in front of you, you got the water right over here, and, you're just sitting there enjoying like really good food and, with friends or whatnot. It's like, yes, this
Good
is,
atmosphere, yeah.
this is my, yes.
Next week, actually, our captain, Sarah, she was the cutest little thing. She was so cool. We're going to have her on next week, along with her boss, I think. I can't remember her name. But anyway, so Sarah from Freedom Boat Club is going to be on next week. So they gifted the foundation this boat ride.
Wow.
And I'm kind of hoping, I'm going to put a bug in their ear that maybe we can do it again in the fall.
That would be nice.
And then, especially after we had the experience yesterday, so I kind of know what to expect, and then give more time so that we can get more people through the foundation to come out and just... And it's not an all-day thing. It was only like 3 hours. It was perfect. And so, yeah, it was really cool. So we want to thank them for that. It was fun.
Even if it's something that they can do like biannually,
Yeah.
do one.
Well, that and maybe sponsor.
Maybe sponsor.
So with all that, I wanted to get that in because it was, and you can... on the foundation Facebook page, one of the gals uploaded some pictures, and she did. I haven't figured out how it works yet because I'm not that savvy with it. But she did one of those reels, and so she uploaded that I think it's on the Facebook page. So
and I think it's it's also nice to point out when we have people out in the community that are willing to do things for the foundation, whether this cause and other causes, that it generates advertisement, for lack of a better word, interest in them, because this is how I am. If I'm somebody looks at me and says, oh, here is like one of our roofing companies, for example, we'll use them as well, or like Freedom Boat Club, when you hear, oh, that there is this particular roofing company as well, oh, here's something that has to do with mental health, or prevention, or with them, suicide prevention, let me do something for this. So when I'm doing, when somebody's like, hey, do you know a good company, or do you know, it's like, what, go do Freedom Boat Club. You know what they did for us? They gave us a free boat ride, just for us to go out and just have a moment. So for me, it's like that's the kind of people that I'm going to refer to.
Yeah, that's what you want to refer to. Well, and that even goes back to the last 2 days. I had my air conditioner and whole system replaced, and I used McWilliams and Son. Yes. Well, this is why when Bobby passed away, right after he had passed away, well, go back just before, we have this light in our yard, and in our backyard, it's one of those big bulb lights, because otherwise it is pitch black. And we had replaced it, but there was something with the electrical running from the pole to the shop that wasn't right. And so Bobby had taken all these outdoor extension cords and ran it from the top of the pole through the trees to the shop. Right after Bobby passed away, McWilliams and Sons sent a crew out, dug a new line, encased it in the electrical piping, and completely redid that for me.
And
and that's why I use people like that.
Oh yeah, and with my experience with McWilliams and Son is I was, matter of fact, it was on this road not too far down. I have a Corvette, and I'm going home, and bam, somebody smashed into the back of my car, and it was somebody driving one of their vehicles. It was a driver. I don't know. And it's like I don't know whether from what I understand, she's not with the company anymore. I don't know if it was related to that or something else. But anyway, just remember. I was talking to my daughter, and I get this smash. And my daughter was like, Mom, are you okay? And I was like, somebody just hit my car. And so, we pulled over, and, I got, not that I really paid attention to the truck, but it was one of their trucks. And, for me, whenever somebody's like, hey, air conditioning stuff and whatnot, I refer them because, between my hospital stay, and more importantly to me, getting my car fixed. Gil, who's I guess he's the owner. Gil's attitude towards me and that crash was, and I got this directly from the insurance adjuster. I don't care what y'all have to do. Do not give her a hard time and fix her car. Like, make sure that she's okay and her car is okay. So when I met Maria for the first time, I was like, do I want to tell her this or not? And I looked at her and says, you know what? I said, tell your boss. And I was like, do you remember the Corvette that got hit by your car? And she goes, yeah. And I was like, it was my car. And she's like, oh, I mean, and I love Maria to this day. And I was like, yeah. So you're right, people and agencies that will go out of their way to do things for people. I don't necessarily because it's the right thing to do, but it's because it's, and I think what I hear sometimes it's the right thing to do. Some people take that out of context. True. So it's like, is it this? It is the right thing to do. I would say like on a superficial level, but when I look at it, it's like, no, this is what's in these people's hearts. Yeah. And I said it is the hard thing to do.
Well, we don't want to leave our guest out of the conversation, but when we're talking like, oh, you're not here.
You're talking about too, so.
Anyway, I want to introduce our guest. Anjel, and I'm not even going to try your last name.
It's Camenzuli.
Okay, I would have butchered it, I'm sure.
That's okay.
She is the patient liaison for Tarpon Total Health Care, which is a chiropractic office in Tarpon Springs, right?
Yeah.
So, Anjel and I are actually a member of a networking group together, and we've kind of known of each other, even though we've been in this group for a while, but we've never really sat down and talked.
Right.
And so I never really knew her story. And, but she knows what it's like to lose someone to suicide, more than one someone. She's lost friends and family, close family members, and she wants to help encourage people to ask for help because she's been there just like us. And so a couple weeks ago, we were at the networking meeting, and you weren't going to be here. It was actually supposed to be last week, and then we weren't here last week. So at the meeting,
boss's fault we weren't here. Last
I know.
Week.
Well, yeah, blame the boss.
Blame the boss.
So I was like. So that Friday after we left, during the weekend, I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Who am I going to get go on the show? So I went to the meeting Monday morning, and sometimes I feel, and it may be just me, that people get tired of hearing what I say, because it's not a fun subject. But I was like, at the end of the meeting during announcements, I said, I need a guest for my show on Friday. If anybody who has experienced suicide loss, and Jill, bam, her hand went up so fast that nobody else even had a chance. There were one or two other people, but so her and I met at the Oasis and had coffee together, and oh my gosh.
So I would say, without further ado, and we'll have to chat later because I want to see if your networking meeting, Tammy, experience was the same as my networking experience meeting.
Oh no, it wasn't.
That must be a story.
But no, it's a running joke between the two of us.
That wasn't even a networking meeting.
Okay, she was at our coalition meeting, but it's still networking because it's community.
Well, I guess.
Anyway, let's shift attention back to you. So yeah, please. I have not heard your story, so please share.
Well, so my name is Anjel. It's not Angel, because it makes me laugh, and I say this because my name is not easily pronounced. It looks like it would just be Angel with a J.
And when you type it in,
it autocorrects.
They change it every time.
So when my daughter, who is now 28 years old, she was 6 at the time, and she was so sick of people calling me Angel. She's like, people, it is a lie. If you get a sunburn, you put Angel, and that's my mom. And that's what I tell everybody.
Nice.
So I will give aloe plants. I'm like, Angel. If you get burned, you put Angel. So That's
Love
kind of
it.
usually it's my lead-in when I'm meeting someone new. Camenzuli is phonetic. So now that you've heard it, when you look at it, you'll be
Now
like,
I'll know.
oh,
Yeah.
Camenzuli. So my husband and Gil went to high school together. My husband is an
okay.
electrician, one of the tallest ones in the Nature Coast corridor. He's a big old guy, and he's from Malta. And he has had some heartbreaking experiences as well with this topic. But the strange thing about when you asked, I realized that my hand shot up well after my hand shot up.
Really? And see, and I never knew that and
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've spoken about it publicly.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, we're honored.
Yes.
We are honored.
Yeah. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm not shy. I'm not shy.
No, and it was funny because I was talking to somebody, I don't know, last week, and for some reason, I know who it was, and I couldn't remember. I was drawing a blank, and I'm like, the girl in our networking meeting that's always so happy and loud, and she knew exactly who it was.
Probably the loud part. That'd be the first thing that would come through. And I am happy, and happiness sometimes it's a decision. You have to decide to be happy, and then the behavior, and then the mindset, of course, and it follows. And some people decide to not be happy, and it shows. But so did you see my face when we connected?
Yeah.
Did it not look weird? Because it felt weird.
No, it did, because it was almost like,
Why did I do this?
Did I do what I think I did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so anybody that knows me knows that there's not a topic that I will shy away from. I'm wide open to having difficult conversations. There's some things that if I'm not educated about, I don't want to talk about it. Politics, that's really not my thing, but I will listen. And but so many myriad of topics. I'll talk about them all. Suicide being one of them, and mainly because it's a topic that people don't want to talk about. Well, that is an indicator right there. We need to talk about it, but I've never talked about it. And so when I sat there like this, and I was like, why is my hand up? And then John looked at me. We made the connection. Then you and I made the connection. And then in the deepest parts of me, I felt like it's happening. It's happening. So yeah, this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to really speak.
So are you comfortable sharing, like that
Absolutely.
story? Which is, typically, whenever we have a guest on, we're talking about experiences. It's like, what you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So my kids and I, we lived out in Washington State for about 8 years. Loved it out there. Now it's kind of crazy, but then it was just go a couple hours in any direction, you've got every kind of landscape.
That's
that
where
there
I
is.
grew up.
Yeah, yeah. To go skiing on Mount Hood in July. Like, those were epic adventures that we had. So I got divorced. My kids and I moved home. Home is Kentucky. My mother and our family, that's where our family's from, right outside of Fordsville, which is almost kind of like martial law country. Like, we're way out in the sticks, so don't have a heart attack. And somebody needs to know how to do some things for you while it takes them 50 minutes to get out there, because the roads are all like this. So, but I wasn't reared by my mom. My grandparents adopted me. So when I got to meet my mom, which sounds strange, I was 15 years old. We've been thick as thieves ever since. I adore my mother. And so she was the oldest of 4 sisters. So she really had a key part in raising her sisters. And so they lived out, like I said, out in the boonies, way like on the other side of the boonies. And so I have my mom, my Aunt Marka Jane. My Aunt Marka Jane was actually born in the house, in the homestead that was there.
Nice.
And then we had my Aunt Nori, who I didn't get to meet, and that's part of this. And then the youngest was my Aunt Claudette. Aunt Claudie, love her. And we were only 10 years apart, and we actually were pregnant at the same time. So I was pregnant with my daughter, my second child, and she was pregnant with her only child. And so our girls are 10 days apart. And even though we didn't live in the same area, we did talk on the phone quite a bit. And I just had a different kind of bond with my Aunt Claudia. And she was the life of the family. She could whistle with, oh, it was so loud. It'd pierce your throat. It would be so loud. But she always had on some kind of like little ankle boots. She was the first one to get up and dance. If music was playing, she's like, let's get up and go. Now, I was raised board at the Backbone Baptist. So Baptist folk, we don't dance. So that was a whole new thing for me. And so when I would go home and, you know, as my kids were growing up and stuff, it was a blast. And it was, a lot of it was her, just because she was the life of it. So, so when I moved home, that was in 2005. We're in Kentucky. What's in Kentucky in the woods? Ticks. It's ticks. You pick them off, you know, you check each other, you know. And I think there's country songs written about it.
Oh, yeah.
And so she had gotten ticks on her. Well, let me back up some. She was a house cleaner, one of the hardest working people I've ever known. And so she had her own business. She cleaned houses for, you know, doctors. There was an attorney, just, you know, some of the bigger names in business in Owensboro, which is where I was born. And she had some manic. There were just some things, and maybe it was, I don't know if it was an age, if it was just a particular, I don't know what the trigger was, but she ended up being diagnosed as bipolar. So the doctor that she cleaned house for, he was able to get her on proper medication. So she was on Klonopin and lithium. And straight out the gate, the cocktail was perfect. They didn't have to really moderate anything. It was just right. And so for years and years, everything was fine. So I moved home 2005, and then she had gotten a tick. Not unlike any other year, you get ticks on you all the time out there. This one burrowed in her ear, into her inner ear canal. And so she was swollen. So they had to take her off of her medication so they could put her on the antibiotics. She was never right, ever, after that. After that, they tried, the Klonopin was too much, the lithium was too much, and then she started hearing voices. And then she started, she acquired these tics, and she would have to, like, she was constantly, but so she was, I'm busy all the time. And that's probably why she and I got along like a house on fire. Like, we were busy together and just fun and always laughing and singing. And now that energy that she has taken a dark turn. And so then she would rock, just trying to comfort herself. Well, now she's got a daughter that's in middle school. Our girls are the same age. And so it was hard for Michaela. So our family pulled together. Yeah, that's what we do. And so she'd have doctor's appointments, and she was still cleaning houses for quite some time, but then she would have crying episodes. Well, we never dealt with anything like this before. I'm not a big crier. My mom's not a crier. And, I mean, it's not like there's no compassion for it. It's just not, you know, my Aunt Marka Jane wasn't particularly like that. And, but I had just moved home for the first time, so I'm actually getting to know my family during this period of time. And so it was awkward. I had questions, and I didn't know if the questions, like, I almost felt like they were taboo. But I was asking them anyway. And so I said, well, you know, like, what about Aunt Nori? Because Aunt Nori passed away when I was around 15 years old, close to that, but I didn't get to meet her. When I was a baby, yes, but I didn't get to meet her. And she had presented with some of the same things that my Aunt Claudette was also dealing with. So, but unfortunately, and there was some drug usage and some alcohol, and there were just involvements in relationships that were incredibly toxic. She had 2 young boys, my cousins, and she ended up in the middle of, it was not really a family reunion, but so much of our family was there, and her kids' dad, I think that they were married, actually. We called him Uncle Chigger, because in Kentucky you don't have normal names. So it was Uncle Chigger, and his hair was red. It was it was red. And his name is David, but Uncle Chigger. And they had split, and she had started seeing somebody else, and then he did too. That was not okay. Him seeing somebody else was not okay. And so there was a confrontation that happened at my Uncle James's house. And she went inside and grabbed his gun, thinking that it was not loaded, because it typically was not, because there was kids in the house, and James would, keep the bullets separate from the firearm. And so when she went and it was a very dramatic, as you can imagine, moment. And the confrontation that was happening in front of everybody. Now everybody's like, "Ooh, what's going to happen now?" Because, Nori was kind of crazy. Everybody knew she'd fight anybody. She'd fight air. And so she went inside, grabbed that gun, and expletives, "I'll blow my brains out," trying to get him to comply. And she pulled the trigger. And her boys were right there.
Oh, my.
And they were little, like 4 and 6, right around that age. Maybe they were a little older. Changed our family forever. How
It does.
So, a lot of times suicide is a private thing, and then the body is found. In this case, it was very public. Now, was it a suicide? Not exactly. It wasn't ruled as that either, because her intention wasn't actually to kill herself, but that is what happened. And so then everybody's left in the wake of that, trying to figure out what happened, why. You've got children that are like, "What did I do?" So that was the first bout of it that I am aware of. Well, now, a mother's never supposed to outlive her children. And now we've got my grandmother, Helen, they're having to bury her daughter. I can't even imagine. I have 2 children, and listen, takes my breath at the thought of anything happening to either one of or my grandchildren. Oh my God. And so, for years, it was the thing that really didn't get talked about. That's typical. Mm-hmm. People don't know how to talk and how to act in just a regular, like somebody passing. You knew it was coming. We get awkward. We say dumb things sometimes at a funeral home, and just trying to make it better, and sometimes we make it worse. And of course there was some of that at play, but it was mainly just stop talking about it. We've got to move on. And it almost feels wrong. And so then I know that my grandma Helen dealt with depression. After that, she wondered did I do something as a mom? Like, where did I miss the boat? And so then my grandma Helen had passed away. So now it is just my mom, my Aunt Martha Jane, and we've got Claudie. And I'm living there with my 2 kids, and we've got Michaela, her only child. Word travels quick in the foothills of Kentucky. And so kids would say things to Michaela who were very unkind. A little buzzing around town, very tiny town. Not only did everybody know everybody, they probably all dated at some point too. Like, that's how small the town was. And so, you know when somebody's talking about you, you walk into the grocery store, and then it's a dead hush, and then somebody finally breaks the silence. "Well, hi, Margot. Hi." It's awkward. So then my Aunt Claudie's, the mental decline that she had was somewhat public. Everybody knew our family. And she stopped cleaning houses. She couldn't. She was hearing voices. Voices were never telling her to kill anybody else. They told her very specific things that she should do to herself. And so she made multiple attempts. And I remember sliced her wrist, blood coagulated up here. Oh, the next attempt, here. Well, blood coagulated. Then it was this. So, she studied how to do this, and all of her attempts failed. Well, my take on that was, Claudie, God's not ready for you yet. There's more for you to do. But she's like, you don't know what's happening up here. You have no idea what these voices are telling me to do. Well, what are they telling you to do? She didn't want to talk about it. I don't know who all she talked about it in the family with, but she did talk about it with me. And so My heartbreaking moment with her was on my mom's porch, and it had just rained. There's nothing like Kentucky rain. Songs written about that too.
There it is.
And she said, my given name is Angela, so my family doesn't call me Anjel. She said, Angela, I need you to pray for me. She'd never asked me for that before. I said, okay. She said, no, I need you to pray for me right now. Well, I'm a much different woman now than I was then. My prayers were, but I know that God heard them. Did they help? Yes. How effectual were they? She was still dealing with it. And I had a struggle myself with God. But I prayed. I asked for her to be delivered from this, and why isn't she delivered? I understand things differently now. She filled the bathtub up, put a toaster oven in there, tripped the breaker. When she would get found, she had been there, she swallowed pills, 30 days worth of Klonopin, 30 days worth of lithium, 30 days, and then she did it where she combined, so she's taken 60 pills. Never any brain damage, never. No organ failure. Had to pump her stomach and stuff. One time it was over 30 minutes. And her daughter found her a number of times. Left notes, I'm so sorry. And so then this went on for years. Years. And so at that point, now you have a daughter that has a very hard heart. She doesn't care. Just stop or do it. Stop or do it. And so now, of course, there's guilt that the family has had to work through since. Claudia was beautiful. And one of the things that she said when she was going through all this, she's just like, well, I don't have anything to offer a man, but at least I'm pretty. Oh my God, that broke my heart for her, because she's so much more than just that. But she was the girl next door. She was beautiful. Personality for miles. Smile that would light up every room. And now she is, in her own perception of herself, she has been reduced to, what is wrong with me? So the doctors are telling her she Baker-acted herself. I don't know how many times. She was Baker-acted by our, different family members a number of times, went to different states. She was on Medicaid. Medicaid surprisingly paid for a lot. And after all these attempts, I told my mom, I said, we don't have any guns in the house or anything. She doesn't have, no, we've got all that stuff locked up. I said, okay, because that'd be horrible. I've struggled with even saying those words, because on many occasions I'm like, what if I'm the one that put that out there and the universe grabbed it? That's exactly how I believe that these things worked. But what if that was what happened? What if I did this? Had my own things to have to battle through. So she was dating a sweetheart named Richard. We just love Richard. Love him now. And Michaela was in high school. She couldn't live alone. Couldn't trust her. She can't live by yourself, because on any given Tuesday, we're going to come home to a note, and then Michaela wasn't even screaming anymore. She called my mom. She's like, well, her little heart was so hard. And so she moved in with Richard. Her and Michaela both was closer to the school. Richard lived right around the corner. He lived right around the corner from his job. He was a mechanic. And he was weary. All of these years he had been going through this with her. I don't think that they started dating before this happened to her. So he had never really known anything but this struggle. And so for our family, we were like, you are a soldier, man. You're awesome. You met her where she was, and you accepted her like that. And so she stayed with him, and they were fighting because he was tired. He was weary. And whatever the fight was about, and Richard, man, it was so hard for him. He was just like, Claudia, I'm done. I've had it. Take your kid, go home. Just go home. And he stormed out. And that fight happened a number of times, but it had just swollen up to that moment. So he storms out the door, he goes to work, and he's just feeling like crap that he said that, because he knows what she's going through, because he's lived through it with her. So Michaela's at school, and so he was feeling guilty. A couple hours went on, so he tried to call the house. She didn't answer the phone. That wasn't really uncommon. Tried to call her cell phone, didn't answer. Wasn't uncommon either. She'd lose that thing. But then he just got this real unsettled feeling. I need to go check on her. Just right around the corner, not very far. So we went home. Her car's there. So he's like, well, maybe she went to, oh no, did she get pills? Like, maybe. So he comes running in the house. Claudia run through them. They lived in a trailer. Couldn't find her. Goes into the kitchen. So Claudia found his gun. It was a gun that had some sentimental attachment to it as well. That was the thing that we were afraid of. It was the only thing she hadn't tried. So what we found out later was that the barrel was too long. And so, I mean, she was really tall, and she had ridiculously long arms, I felt like. But it was just awkward. And so, like, she worked around with her toe. So she got it in position, and she put it right here. And that was going to be it until it wasn't. So she had it positioned just right, and if it would have gone the way that she had planned for it to, it would have been done. Except that the gun kicked when she pulled the trigger, and it went this way. And it blew the entire side of her face off. And it didn't kill her. So when he found her, you know how like when an animal knows they're going to die and they go retreat out into the woods or whatever to go out and die alone. That's what she had done. So there was a trail of blood from the porch all the way down the steps, all the way out. And when he found her, I can't even imagine what must have been going through his mind. So I got the call. I was living in Indianapolis at the time, right outside of Indianapolis. And she got bay-flighted to Louisville. And Medicaid paid over, just for the plastic surgery alone, was $1.2 million. And they took skin from other parts of her, and grafted it. And I went and saw her. It's odd because it was May. It happened in May. And I have a picture of her, the way that she looked in the hospital. My God, it broke my heart for her, because that's not who I saw, but that's how she looked. And I told my mom, I said, you know what she said? She doesn't have anything to offer a man, but anybody, at least she was still pretty. Mom, she can't see her face. If she sees her face, it's going to be over. And she was in the hospital there in Louisville the Jewish hospital, gosh, for months, and they were doing rehab, and she had to relearn how to feed herself and everything. She hadn't seen herself, and I made sure that I told the nurses, do not, whatever, they're like, well, we can't take the mirror. I'm just telling you, whatever it is that you need to do, don't let her see her face. The manner in which she went, I'm not going to disclose. It was horrible. And that's what happened. That was it for her. And so Michaela is beautiful. She looks just like her mom. She graduated high school, and it was an act of God that she did. And she now has a little boy of her own that looks a lot like his grandmother. And it was so hard in our family because none of the rest of us really struggled. We didn't have depression. You get sad, and you get really sad. And I'm going to tell you what, I went through a couple of things with my kids where I had reached a level of, like, despair. That's not sadness. I didn't feel suicidal, but I'm going to tell you what, I will never, ever judge anybody that does feel that way, because that feeling of despair is a whole deeper level of pain that doesn't come with words or a description on how to get out of it. The only way that I was able to come out of despair was God. God was the only answer that I had. So with our family, and we had her celebration of life, that was the hardest celebration of life we ever had, ever. And it's still something that our family struggles to talk about, because there's a lot of guilt that has gone with it. Like looking back, like, gosh, I wish I would have never said, suck it up. You know, just decide that you're just not going to feel that way. And those are some of the things that people say that don't understand, because they're not there, they're not dealing with it. Now looking back, I think that she had Lyme's disease. Also, something that doctors don't want to talk about at all. Mental illness is such a taboo topic, and it's even more so in other areas, like in pockets of these poor rural areas.
Right, that's what I was going to say. In rural, low population,
Yeah.
low income areas.
So this happens with Tammy and I a lot on the show, where it's like, let me push back on that just a little bit. And I say this, from the standpoint of someone who works in the field. Like we joke and say I'm the mental health professional on the set. It's a loving joke between us. But I mean, I don't disagree with the perception that it's taboo in. Let me rephrase that. More taboo,
Yeah.
or the appearance that it's more taboo
Right.
in certain sectors than it
Demographics.
is, right? But when I look at amongst different demographics, low income, minority, but then at the same time, in my when I'm doing work, I see it from the top. From the richest, affluent people,
Right.
down to where
It goes back to it's. Now I lost the word. I'm doing your trick. It doesn't discriminate.
Oh,
correct. It
100%.
doesn't. And like as I'm listening to your story, I was like, wow, when you're like, being a parent, that has to bury a child, and I'm like. A child and a grandchild,
Oh, God.
But the one thing that you said that as I was listening to you, and again, it kind of resonates, with my own story, where it's like, we don't think it was a suicide because we don't think that was her intent, and it wasn't ruled a suicide, And as I'm sitting back, it's a commonality with my son. It's like, well, his wasn't ruled a suicide, but then I'm like, I don't know, if that's. Have you ever? Is that still something that whether it's you yourself or your family, is still reconciling with? Like, do you say, all right, I know what the paper says, it wasn't a suicide. Do you or any of your family say it's like, no, it was a suicide? Well, that wasn't her intent,
Right.
but was it?
We don't think it was her intent with Aunt Nori, because she was pissed off, like she was mad. Like, it's okay for me to date, but you're never allowed to date again, and I'll just do this. And so it was very erratic. Again, there was also drugs involved. There was an audience, and I heard that she was rather theatrical. I came by it kind of honestly, and because I am very extra that way as well, very demonstrative, and so no, I don't think that it was, without even ever having the opportunity to know her or meet her, and my mom and her sisters didn't either. With Claudia, it definitely was. I mean, I think there were 27 attempts.
Wow.
27 attempts before it actually solidified. And in just the most heartbreaking, heart-gutting of ways. And then, as if it were not bad enough, going back to my Aunt Nori, her two boys, my cousins, that it happened right in front of them. There's mom and there's mom. So their dad remarried many years later, Elizabeth. She'd been a family friend years and years and years. My mom had known her, I think, since they were kids. Her and Chigger, Uncle Chigger, split, and Elizabeth was very well off. Very well off. And it was my younger nephew, Ethan. She was having problems. He went to check on her, and she was hanging. So now he's buried two moms. And so it's a heavy, suicide is a plague. It is a without stepping too deeply into it, it is a heavy spirit of bondage. And but if we don't talk about it as openly as the end result exposes itself, if we don't talk about it as boldly before it has the opportunity to happen, then it's going to continue happening.
And I think it's equally important, or what's as equally important as talking about the subject is the manner in which we talk about it.
Very much so.
Because what I find, and again, this is something that, Tammy and I have talked about on, a lot of occasions. Some of us, we, attach the subject, it's a dark subject, and we talk about it in the dark, in a dark manner, and it's like, I'm not trying to hear the subject, and I'm definitely not trying to hear it, how it's presented, which, when we were, given this platform, it is a way to, and we tell our audience all the time, sometimes it gets deep, sometimes it gets dark, sometimes we have to have tissues here, but at the same time, I think we have gotten ourselves to a place where you can talk about it, openly, and in a, this sounds weird, how do you talk about suicide in an upbeat manner? Again, but I find that taking a dark subject and, normalizing, one of the things, with mental health is reducing stigma. Yes. And, reducing the stigma from mental health, reducing the stigma from suicide, reducing the stigma from, substance abuse. I find, my own personal opinion is the reason why people don't talk about it or it is taboo, it is because we continue to stay stuck in the stigma.
Well, it's not an easy thing to just fix.
That's true. That is true. And
so if you can't fix it, they don't want to talk about it. I find that with chiropractic care, so speaking to like depression and things in our clinic, people that have been dealing with chronic pain for years and years and years, we hear a lot of times, "Thank you so much. You've helped me get out of pain. I really didn't think this was going to be my last holiday. If I couldn't find something that was going to help me get out of this pain, I just already made the decision. I wasn't going to do this anymore." And I mean, Dr. Huey's told me some stories. It is hurt but they're victorious at the same time because they were able to in this particular sense. Chiropractic care was able to pull them out of that, at least the deep level of pain that they were experiencing, where they could now experience something other than pain, like joy. They could hold their grandbaby, or they could walk unassisted. There's so many great stories, and then we find out later when they give us 5-star review, or a lady gave us a video testimonial, and that was when she had said that. I was like, oh my gosh. I wonder how many people who live in chronic pain, my dad was one of them. He didn't want to go to hell. That was what he had. If I kill myself, I'm going to go to hell. So I don't want to go to hell, but man, I don't want to live like this. And that was a hard existence for him. He's passed away from many other things. But that would, if he would have been able to have gotten over that hurdle in his mind, he would have taken himself out years prior to it happening.
So another thing too I like about the profession that you're in, chiropractor, is that it has that same stigma attached to it too.
Oh, God.
You know, I remember because I remember going to and I've used chiropractors in the past, and I'd gone to a chiropractor one time, or I'd met somebody, and in the midst of the conversation, so like I'd gone to a chiropractor, and he fixed what was wrong, and then I met somebody and we were talking, and his comment to me was, "I'm just a chiropractor," and I was livid. I was livid, and I was like, "What did you just say?" And he was like,
Wow.
"I'm just
That's
a
not
chiropractor."
somebody you want to go to.
Well, no. I would go to this person.
Yeah.
I think for me, when he says I'm just a chiropractor, I
Watered
was
his
like,
own self down.
right, and
Yeah.
I was like, again, why are you doing this to yourself? And I don't know if he was joking in a sense, or if he was just so used to
They get beat up.
people don't see
Oh,
me
yeah.
as legit. I'm not a doctor, and I was like, whoa.
Because they don't prescribe medicine.
Yeah.
So you can't be a doctor if you can't prescribe medicine, because we have been conditioned to believe the campaign of a pill for your ill.
Just cover up the symptoms, don't treat it.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's it's. I mean, it's the same thing in my line of work. We hear, well, you're not a real doctor. And I've been
Says
finished
who?
Well, I haven't finished my doctorate yet. Just for make sure that we're
Speaking in
disclosure there.
terms,
Yeah. But we do hear it's like, well, you're not a doctor because, to your point, you're not prescribing medication. And like I said, this particular, individual, I was like, yeah, I don't believe in violence. Don't ever let me use that again, because, I would go to, there are certain things that I will go to a chiropractor before I go to a regular doctor.
Oh, I do too. I dated a chiropractor in high school.
Oh, boy.
That
Wait a
was
minute.
That was my first introduction.
Was he a chiropractor when you were dating him?
Yeah, he was.
There might be some
I've got
stories
more
there.
questions.
No, he had just got his chiropractic license. He was 5 years older than me. He was one of the youngest people to get his chiropractic license.
Wow.
It was long.
Kind of like a
long
Doogie
time.
Howser.
Yeah, well, sort of.
Yeah.
Not that young, but anyways.
But yeah, they think of
that's how
chiropractors as
I
like
was
voodoo.
introduced.
They think that because they don't understand. And partly because sometimes people have made the determination, they've made a commitment to misunderstanding
Well,
a person or
Oh yeah,
or something.
and what they can do. Years ago, when I had my first framing business in Pompano Beach, I was moving a piece of exercise equipment, and I pulled something. I don't know, didn't know what I did. Went to the emergency walk-in, and they said, "Oh, you just strained a muscle," blah blah blah. Come to find out years later, because what ended up happening is I pulled a rib out.
So bad.
And so if they would have sent me to a chiropractor at that time, I would have never had issues as time went on. And what would end up happening is, and to this day, that rib still comes out. Yeah. It's not as bad, but it would come out and I would get horrific headaches. Go to the chiropractor, within 10 to 20 minutes, my headaches are gone.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, right.
Those are the people. I mean, that's all I do every day, all day. Talk to folks about, and I don't shy away from hard conversations. I want to talk to people who do not believe in chiropractic care, who've had bad experiences, or their Aunt Betty had a bad experience, and now they're just convinced that she's walking around like this because a chiropractor jacked her up, and that's not what happened at all. She really has a bad pillow. And maybe relationship, who knows? The most interesting
combo of the
conversations
two.
with
It's a
it's a
combo of
myriad
the
of
two.
problems, and chiropractic cannot fix all
Not
of
fix
them.
those.
Not all of them, but they can fix a lot. And but the bringing people out of chronic pain, it changes a person's mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Then they can actually see color where everything before was so gray and dismal and there's no hope. When you live with pain all the time, but what if it's not a body pain? What if it's a heart pain? What if it is an actual chemical imbalance that they can't get right, and you're living with that and you don't want to, but you have? So these are hard things to talk about, and they should be talked about on bigger platforms than just Party of Three.
And and I agree with that. I'm kind of watching our ticker here. So it's
Yeah.
like this has been like an amazing conversation, and it's
Yeah.
like we need to have you come back.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Actually, I'm just so glad that you raised your hand when I posed the question.
Listen, if you ask, it will be given.
So let's make sure we pop our phone numbers up. Please make sure that you put have the phone numbers on hand.
The lifeline numbers.
Yes.
Remember, you can call or text 988. That's the new short one. It's easy to remember.
And our quote.
I can't remember what I sent in for the quote. Oh, yeah, there it is. I have to come to believe that caring for myself is not self-indulgent. Caring for myself is an act of survival.
I love that.
I do too. And those are some powerful words.
And there's our numbers. The longer ones, make sure you put them in your phone. And I think, too, I just saw if you text 988 and you're a veteran or call 988, press 1. That's for the veterans. But make sure you have those in your...
But it's true. If you or someone that you know is in crisis, please do not sit with that. Please, 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 whatever you do, reach out to somebody. There's got to be a trusted person in your life. If there's not, there's phone numbers that were just placed on the screen. There's somebody that wants to talk to you. You are not alone. If you feel like you are alone, it is a lie. You're not alone. There's somebody that wants to be there for you to help to pull you out of this pit more than once.
And Joe, we want to thank you so much for having the strength to tell your story for the first time.
Thank you for the opportunity to tell it.
And we feel honored and grateful that you felt comfortable enough with us to share.
Thank you so much.
That's right. That's what we have to do.
And
So,
we always say,
I mean, you have to, because there's always hope. Thank you.